Good morning, YouTube. You join me on quite a fresh, cool morning this morning, and what I wanted to talk about today was, should you consider a ZZR1400 for your next bike? So if you're watching this video, you probably already are considering one of these as your next bike, or I don't know, maybe next one after that, or your second bike, or whatever it might be. But I'll start off first by saying, although this is, I suppose, a sports tourer, I would say it is definitely more on the sports side than it is the tourer side. What I think this bike is really is almost a jack of all trades, except one thing which it is an expert at, which is straight line speed. I think if you want a full-on sports bike, a full-on sports bike, a track bike, a race bike, look elsewhere, because this isn't it. I mean, you know, people do take them on track days and stuff, and supposedly they handle very, very well for their size, but it is too big and too heavy to be considered, you know, a proper sports bike. So I wouldn't buy one if you're after a full-on, you know, leant over racing position, tearing up corners sort of thing. That's not what this is for, really. As I said, you know, I'm sure it can do it perfectly fine, especially with a good set of tyres on it. Speaking of which, next year I'm going to need some new tyres on this. I'm not quite sure which ones to go for yet, so I've been looking at recommendations of other ZZR owners. Michelin Road Pilots apparently seems to be the way to go, but I'll decide that next year. Anyway, yeah, as I said, you know, I'm sure it can do it, but likewise on the total opposite end of the spectrum, if you want a full-on tourer adventure bike, again, this isn't it. Yes, it can take luggage very well, it can take top boxes and all that sort of stuff, but although it is comfortable, I'm not sure. I think if you were going to be doing full-on touring, I think there probably are better bikes out there for that. I mean, for example, I mean, this doesn't have cruise control or anything like that, which you'd probably want on a tourer. But what I think this bike does is sit between the two quite well, because as I said, you know, it's missile fast, faster than the vast majority of sports bikes. There aren't many bikes that are quicker than this thing, and it can do, you know, I see people on forums all the time that take them on 2,500–3,000 mile trips around Europe and you know, wherever they may be, and they do it quite happily. But they, I think, like me, have chosen this bike because it can do big miles comfortably, and it's incredibly, you know, incredibly fast. I think that's why pretty much everyone chooses this bike. This bike sort of, as I said, sits somewhere in the middle. I think I said before in my previous video, I think exactly what this bike is made for is doing big miles at incredibly high speed. That's what this thing is made for. There are more comfortable things that you could do 3,000 mile road trip on, and believe it or not, I'm sure there probably are things that are slightly quicker in a straight line. The H2, for example, not the H2SX, the full-on H2. And I would say the H2R, but then the H2R is obviously, you know, it's not road legal, it is a race bike, so I'm not going to count that. But yes, I think you absolutely should consider this bike if you're looking for something that's missile fast, but an incredibly good all-round bike. You know, I mean, it just does everything so well. Really, really well. I mean, I don't plan on taking this on a track or anything. I could do if I wanted to, but I've got no immediate plans to do that. I think the only way I wouldn't have bought this bike, because I've wanted one for such a long time, the only way I wouldn't have bought this bike is if I wanted a full-on racing bike. You know, something like the Yamahas. I mean, the new R6 and the R1s, I mean, they are just they're racing bikes with headlights. If I wanted something like that, then no, I definitely wouldn't have chosen this, because that is not what this is. But I have no particular interest in doing stuff like that, really. I wouldn't say I wouldn't give it a go, but it's certainly not high up on my priority list. As I said, I chose this, I think, like most people, because they wanted a comfortable bike that can do very, very fast speeds, and you can, you know, quite happily sit for a lot of miles on. I think that's why everyone chooses these bikes. Not sure the camera's picking this up, but it is incredibly cold this morning. This is the coldest weather I've ridden in so far, I think. I mean, I will also say that this bike is not for the faint-hearted. This is not something you should consider if it's your first motorbike. Definitely not. Yeah, I took a break from biking for a long time. I started off doing my CBT and getting a 50cc, and then I learnt on a 125. So after, I think, about a year and a bit of having the 50, I did my full test. I got my first big bike, which was a restricted 400cc, and then eventually I could take the restrictors out of it, which did make a hell of a difference. And then after that, I got a 600cc ZX6 sports bike, and I had that for a couple of years, and I used that every day, because at that time I didn't have a car license. So I had my bike license before my car license. So yeah, you know, I have ridden other CC bikes, so this is not something to get for your first bike. I mean, to be honest, the break I took from biking, it probably wasn't wise for me to get this, really. But I will say that it's not, I don't find it intimidating at all. It's not like it's trying to kill you or anything like that. It's very, very easy to ride. Very easy to ride. It's a joy to ride, actually. It's lovely. There aren't really any vibrations or, you know, or nothing like that. It's not harsh. As I said, you know, it's not actively trying to kill you like some machines do. No, I would definitely recommend being more well-rounded in the bike department before you get something like this, or a Hayabusa, or even, you know, the fast thousands, an R1, a GSX-R1000, a Fireblade, whatever. But, you know, it is, when you do get to something like this, it really is not intimidating. It's very, very easy to ride. When I first got on it, you know, it's a case of dealing with the size and the weight of it when you're doing slow speeds, but other than that, you know, it's fine. So yeah, I would say, in conclusion, if you're looking for something that's a very all-round bike that, you know, that you can happily do a few hundred miles on at a time, and that is very, very fast, then I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know why you wouldn't consider one of these. You know, it's an absolutely beautiful machine. It really, really is. But, you know, going back to the original point, if you're looking for a full-on sports bike, this isn't it. And on the opposite end, if you're looking for a full-on tourer, this isn't it either, I don't think. So anyway, that'll do it from me, guys. I'm going to go and find somewhere warm now, I think. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.